Hey, before we get into it, go ahead and like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. And frankly, it's a lot easier than spending 11 years selling shoes to people who don't deserve them. Trust me, Al Bundy would agree. Hi, my name is Aaron, and this is Old TV Cinema. Today we're diving deep into one of the most gloriously offensive, proudly lowbrow, and genuinely revolutionary sitcoms ever to air on American television. Married with Children, 15 Facts. You probably didn't know about the show that made Fox a network and made dysfunctional families feel seen. Number 15. The show almost never existed. Let's set the scene. It's 1986. Fox Broadcasting Company is not yet a real network. It's more of an idea, a gamble, a pipe dream funded by Rupert Murdoch that most of Hollywood was quietly laughing at behind closed doors. The big three, ABC, NBC, and CBS, had a stranglehold on American television, and nobody, and I mean nobody, thought a fourth network was going to crack that open. Then along came two writers named Ron Levitt and Michael Moy. Now, these guys had history. They had both worked on The Jeffersons, one of the sharpest and most successful sitcoms of the 1970s and early 80s. But the show they were pitching now was nothing like The Jeffersons. What they were proposing was essentially the anti-sitcom. No hugs, no lessons, no carefully resolved conflicts in 22 minutes. What they wanted to put on television was a family that was genuinely, almost poetically miserable, and somehow found that misery funny. Every other network passed, and honestly, can you blame them? The pitch was essentially, what if we took everything warm and redemptive about the American family sitcom and threw it directly in the trash? NBC wasn't interested. ABC wasn't interested. CBS looked the other way so fast it might have pulled a muscle. But Fox had nothing to lose. They were a brand new network desperate for programming, desperate for identity, and frankly desperate for anything that might get anyone, to tune in on a Sunday night. So they said yes. And with that one reckless, beautiful yes, American television changed forever. What's wild is that without Fox's desperation, Married with Children probably never gets made. It's one of those moments where failure at the top quietly creates a masterpiece at the bottom. The show premiered on April 5th, 1987, as part of Fox's very first Sunday night lineup. Right alongside it was a little show called The Tracy Ullman Show. Not a bad opening night, all things considered. Number 14. The original title was completely different. Okay, so here's something that will mess with your brain a little. The show we know and love as Married with Children almost had a completely different name. During development, the working title was Not the Cosbys. Let that sink in for a second. Not the Cosbys. Now, if you needed any clearer signal that Ron Levitt and Michael Moy knew exactly what they were doing and exactly what they were reacting against, there it is in 3 words. The Cosby Show was the biggest thing on television in 1986. It was warm, it was aspirational, it was a weekly reminder that family life could be filled with wisdom and jazz and Bill Cosby making faces. Leavitt and Moy basically looked at that and said, yeah, what about the other kind of family? The title Not the Cosbys was eventually dropped, probably because naming your show after a competitor's hit is the kind of thing that gets lawyers very excited and creative executives very nervous. But the spirit of that original title never left. Everything about Married with Children, from Al's dead-end job to Peggy's weaponized laziness to the general atmosphere of cheerful hopelessness hanging over the Bundy household like a storm cloud, was a direct answer to the glossy perfection of what family television had become. And here's the thing, that contrast was the entire point. Audiences responded to it because it felt real in a way that primetime sitcoms hadn't in years. The Bundys weren't aspirational, they were recognizable. And sometimes that's a lot more powerful. Number 13. Al Bundy's shoe store was based on a real job. Ed O'Neill is one of the great underrated comedic actors in television history, and I will die on that hill. But before he became Al Bundy, he wasn't exactly a household name. More on that in a minute. What I want to tell you right now is that O'Neill didn't just show up on set and start sighing heavily and insulting customers. He actually did his homework. Before filming began, O'Neill spent time working at a real shoe store in Los Angeles to prepare for the role. He wasn't just observing, he was actually fitting customers, measuring feet, climbing around on those little carpeted footstools, and dealing with the full spectrum of humanity that apparently walks through the doors of a shoe store on any given Tuesday. And what he found there informed everything about Al Bundy's barely contained existential despair. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about working in retail. It's not the hard work that breaks you, it's the specific grinding, soul-dissolving combination of physical proximity to strangers' feet and the quiet understanding that this is how your day is going to go, every day forever. O'Neill absorbed all of that and poured it directly into Al Bundy. The show's writers leaned into this heavily. Al's relationship with his job at Gary's Shoes and Repair on the south side of Chicago became one of the most consistently funny running gags in sitcom history. The customers were always enormous, their feet were always catastrophic, and Al's visible suffering was always pitch perfect. You can't fake that kind of weary resignation. O'Neill earned it one orthopedic fitting at a time. Number 12. The feminist boycott that made the show famous. This is one of my favorite stories in all of television history, not because of the controversy itself, but because of how completely and spectacularly it backfired. In 1989, a Michigan housewife named Terry Rakolta watched an episode of Married with Children called Her Cups Runneth Over, and was, to put it mildly, not pleased. The episode featured Al searching for a lingerie catalog, standard Married with Children content. But Rakolta decided this was the moment to draw a line in the sand. She launched a letter-writing campaign targeting the show's advertisers, demanding they pull their spots from the program. And here's where it gets interesting. It worked. Several advertisers did pull their ads. Companies like Procter & Gamble and McDonald's quietly distanced themselves from the show. Rakolta appeared on national news programs. She wrote op-eds. She became the face of a movement to clean up primetime television. And in doing so, she accidentally turned Married with Children into the most talked about show on television. Ratings, which had been decent but not spectacular, absolutely exploded. Viewers who had never seen the show before tuned in specifically because someone was trying to get it taken off the air. There is no marketing campaign in the world more powerful than someone loudly insisting that people shouldn't watch something. Fox, to their eternal credit, stood behind the show. They didn't flinch, they didn't apologize, and they didn't pull a single episode. The result was that Married with Children went from a moderately successful niche show to a genuine cultural phenomenon almost overnight. Rakolta had set out to cancel it, and instead launched it into the television stratosphere. Ed O'Neill later joked that they should have sent her a gift basket. Honestly, he wasn't wrong. Number 11. Katie Sagal's real-life pregnancy changed everything. This one starts funny and gets genuinely heartbreaking, so stay with me. By season 6, Katie Sagal, who played Peggy Bundy with an absolutely fearless commitment to self-absorption and leopard print, was pregnant in real life. The show's writers decided to incorporate her pregnancy into the storyline. Peggy Bundy was written as pregnant, with the whole Bundy household reacting to the news in exactly the way you'd expect, which is to say, with maximum chaos and minimum grace. Audiences were watching what appeared to be a comedic pregnancy arc, unfolding in real time, and the show was handling it with the kind of irreverent humor that had always been its trademark. Then, in November of 1991, Sagal suffered a stillbirth. It was a devastating personal tragedy, one that no amount of television experience prepares you for. The show's response was to essentially erase the entire pregnancy storyline. Peggy Bundy was no longer pregnant. No explanation was offered. The show just quietly moved on, and the Bundy baby was written out of existence with the same breezy indifference the show usually reserved for continuity errors. For Sagal, filming those subsequent episodes while processing that level of grief was an act of remarkable professional courage. She has spoken about it in interviews over the years with both honesty and generosity, noting that returning to work was in some ways therapeutic, even as it was painful. It's a reminder that behind even the most absurdist comedy, there are real people navigating real lives, and sometimes those lives are very hard. Number 10. The cast. didn't exactly bond over warm, fuzzy feelings. At first. Look, every show has its behind-the-scenes friction, but Married with Children had a particularly interesting dynamic in its early days, which is that the cast was essentially thrown together with very little rehearsal time and almost no opportunity to develop the kind of shorthand that great ensemble comedy requires. Ed O'Neill and Katie Sagal came from very different acting backgrounds. O'Neill had done serious dramatic stage work. Sagal had been a singer and had done guest spots on various shows. Christina Applegate was 1987, a teenager. David Faustino was even younger. These were not people who naturally gravitated toward each other. Early on, there were reportedly tensions about timing, about where the comedy was coming from, and about the general question of what kind of show this actually was. Was it broad farce, dark satire, pure shock comedy? The answer, as it turned out, was all three simultaneously, but it took a while for everyone to find that groove. What's fascinating is that the friction, rather than hurting the show, actually helped it. The Bundys weren't supposed to like each other very much. They were supposed to be a family bound together by circumstance rather than affection. The slightly prickly real-life dynamic between the cast members in those early seasons translated directly into an on-screen chemistry that felt genuinely, authentically uncomfortable in all the right ways. By the middle seasons, they'd found their rhythm and their genuine affection for each other was obvious. But those early rough edges, they were exactly what the show needed. Number 9. Christina Applegate almost didn't get the role. Kelly Bundy is one of the great comic creations in American sitcom history. Fearlessly dumb, surprisingly sweet underneath all the hairspray, and played by Applegate with a physical comedy precision that most trained comedians would envy. But here's the thing, she almost wasn't Kelly Bundy at all. The audition process for Married with Children was, by all accounts, pretty extensive. The role of Kelly Bundy went through multiple rounds of consideration, and Applegate, who was 16 at the time and had been acting since she was a small child, thanks to her mother's career in the industry, was not the obvious frontrunner going in. What got her the role was exactly what made her so magnetic in the part for 11 seasons. She found the comedy in Kelly without ever condescending to her. A lot of actors, when given the task of playing a character who is written as profoundly unintelligent, default to mockery. They played the joke from the outside, Applegate played it from the inside. Kelly Bundy, in Applegate's hands, was never stupid so much as she was operating on a completely different frequency from the rest of the world. And that distinction, subtle as it sounds, was everything. Applegate has said in interviews that she genuinely loved Kelly and that the character taught her more about physical comedy and timing than anything else in her career. Given what she's done since, including her Emmy-winning work on Samantha Who and her extraordinary performance in Dead to Me, that's saying something. Number 8. The No Ma'am Club was almost cut. If you were a fan of Married with Children in its middle and later seasons, you know about No Mom, the National Organization of Men Against Amazonian Masterhood, Al Bundy's ragtag brotherhood of defeated husbands who gathered at the Jiggly Room, drank beer, and collectively mourned the various indignities of modern manhood. It was absurdist, it was occasionally brilliant, and it almost never made it to air. Network executives at Fox were reportedly uncomfortable with the No Ma'am storylines. Based for a couple of reasons. First, there was the concern that the humor was too niche, that audiences wouldn't connect with a group of middle-aged men sitting around a strip club complaining about their wives. Second, and perhaps more significantly, there were concerns that the whole setup was going to generate the kind of organized feminist pushback that the show had already experienced once with Terry Ricolta. Why poke that particular bear again? The writers pushed back hard. Their argument was straightforward. The joke isn't that these men are right. The joke is that these men are so comprehensively, cosmically wrong about everything, and so spectacularly ill-equipped to do anything about it that their attempts at organized resistance are the funniest thing imaginable. The humor was never at women's expense. It was entirely at the expense of Al and his fellow travelers. Fox eventually relented, and No Ma'am became one of the show's most beloved recurring elements. Jefferson, played by Ted McGinley, became a key member, which is notable for reasons we'll get to. And Al Bundy's fraternal misery became, paradoxically, one of the show's most warmly received storylines. Number 7. Ed O'Neill was completely unknown before this. I want to make sure this lands properly because it's genuinely remarkable. Ed O'Neill, one of the most recognizable faces in American television history, was essentially a complete unknown when he was cast as Al Bundy in 1987. He had done some stage work in New York, had a brief stint as a professional football player, actually making the Pittsburgh Steelers roster before being cut before the regular season. He had a small role in the film Cruising in 1980. But in terms of television presence, he was essentially starting from scratch at 38 years old. And think about that, 38. In Hollywood years, that's somewhere between late bloomer and miracle. The industry doesn't generally hand the lead of a brand new network's flagship sitcom to a nearly 40-year-old character actor with minimal television credits. But the casting directors on Married with Children saw something in O'Neill that nobody else had quite captured on screen yet. A specific weathered, put-upon quality, the face of a man who has seen the bill arrive and knows he can't pay it. O'Neill has talked about the audition in various interviews, noting that he didn't initially understand the character until he stopped trying to make Al sympathetic and just let him be exactly what he was. A man drowning quietly in his own life and choosing, consciously or not, to take everyone around him down with him. The result was one of the great comedic performances in television history, and it came from a guy that, before April of 1987, almost nobody had ever heard of. Number 6. The show was nearly canceled after season 2. Here's one that doesn't get talked about enough. Married with Children, the show that would eventually run for 11 seasons and 259 episodes and become one of the defining comedies of its era, was very nearly canceled after its second season. The ratings in those early years were not what anyone at Fox had. The network was still finding its footing, its distribution was uneven, and a significant portion of the country couldn't even reliably receive Fox affiliates in the late 1980s. The audience that would eventually make the show a phenomenon simply hadn't found it yet. There were internal discussions at Fox about whether to renew for a third season. The Terry Rakolta boycott, while it ultimately helped the show's profile, had in the short term scared off some advertisers and created a perception problem. Some executives wondered whether the controversy was worth it for a show that wasn't yet delivering blockbuster numbers. What saved it, by most accounts, was a combination of factors. Fox's continued lack of alternative programming, the growing word of mouth among younger viewers who were finding the show in syndication and reruns, and the genuine critical appreciation for what O'Neill and the cast were doing, even if the ratings hadn't fully caught up yet. By season 3, the Rakolta effect had fully kicked in, and the audience found the show in a big way. But it came genuinely close to never getting there. The version of television history where Married with Children gets quietly canceled in 1989, and nobody remembers it, is a genuinely bleak one. I don't want to live in that timeline. Number 5. 7. The full story behind TV's most hated character. Okay, we have to talk about 7, not because it's a fun story necessarily, but because it's one of the most instructive disasters in sitcom history, and it deserves the full treatment. Now, if you've been watching old TV cinema for a while, you know we've touched on 7 before in our Cousin Oliver Syndrome video, and our disappearing characters countdown. But I want to give you the complete picture here, because the full story is even wilder than the highlight reel. It's season 7, 1993. Fox executives, nervous that the show is losing some of its edge, decide what Married with Children really needs is a cute kid. The logic, such as it was, being that adding a child to the household would create new comedic dynamics and bring in younger viewers. The writers were apparently not thrilled. The entire premise of Married with Children was that the Bundys were a specific closed system of misery. Adding an outside element, especially a child, risked disrupting the very chemistry that made the show work. But network pressure is network pressure, and 7 arrived, played by Shane Sweet, delivered to the Bundys by Peggy's hillbilly cousins, and left there like a particularly inconvenient piece of furniture. The audience reaction was immediate and unambiguous. Hate mail poured in. Ratings dipped. The kid didn't fit the tone, didn't fit the family, and didn't fit any version of what viewers had come to love about the show. Married with Children had always been funny precisely because it was merciless. Adding an innocent child to that equation pulled the punch in a way that felt fundamentally wrong. So the writers did something extraordinary. They just got rid of him, not with an episode, not with a storyline. They just stopped including him. And then, in one of the greatest self-aware gags in sitcom history, Seven's face appeared on a milk carton in a later episode, marked missing. The show acknowledged it had tried something, admitted it didn't work, and put the joke on themselves. That kind of self-awareness is rare in television at any era, and the fact that they pulled it off with a milk carton gag is honestly kind of genius. Number 4. The theme song has a surprisingly layered origin. Love and marriage. Love and marriage go together like a horse and carriage. You know it? You've been humming it for the last 30 seconds. Don't even try to deny it. The decision to use Frank Sinatra's 1955 recording of Love and Marriage as the Married with Children theme was not an accident and not just a budget decision. It was a deliberate, carefully considered tonal choice that tells you everything you need to know about what the show was trying to do here. The song, written by Sammy Cahn and James Van Heusen, was originally written for a television adaptation of Our Town. It's a cheerful, bouncy number about the inevitability of romantic commitment. Sinatra recorded it with a full orchestra and made it sound like the most natural thing in the world. Love and marriage, goes the lyric, you can't have one without the other. It's an optimistic sentiment. And the genius of using it for Married with Children is that the show spent 11 seasons systematically dismantling every single thing that song is celebrating. The Bundys had love and marriage. What they absolutely did not have was the horse and carriage. What they had was a broken down Dodge and a stack of unpaid bills and a couch that had probably seen better days during the Carter administration. Using a warm, classic Sinatra-voiced ode to romantic love as the opening for a show about marital misery was a joke in itself. It set the tone before a single line of dialogue was spoken, and it did it with a smile on its face. That's craft. Ron Levitt and Michael Moy knew exactly what they were doing. Number 3. Married with Children launched Fox as a network. This one is not an exaggeration, and it's not revisionist history. Married with Children was, in a very real and documentable sense, the show that made Fox Broadcasting Company a viable television network. When Fox launched in 1987, it was broadcasting on a collection of independent stations that didn't cover the whole country, had no news division, no sports rights, and exactly 2 shows in its Sunday night lineup. One of them was The Tracy Ullman Show. The other was Married with Children. The Tracy Ullman Show, for all its genuine quality, and its historical significance as the incubator for a little animated short called The Simpsons, did not find a mass audience. Married with Children did. And as the ratings for the Bundys grew, particularly after the Ricolta controversy lit the fuse in 1989, Fox had something it desperately needed: proof of concept. Networks need anchor shows. They need a reason for viewers to find them, to add them to the rotation, to think of them as a destination rather than an accident. NBC had Cheers and The Cosby Show. CBS had Dallas and Murder, She Wrote. ABC had Dynasty and Roseanne. Fox had Al Bundy's Feet. And it worked. The success of Married with Children gave Fox the credibility and the revenue to pursue bigger deals. Sports rights, news programming. They went after The Simpsons, which premiered in 1989 and became a cultural phenomenon. They developed Beverly Hills, 9210, and Melrose Place, and The X-Files, and Martin and Living Single. The whole Fox network identity of the 1990s, edgy, youth-oriented, willing to go, places the big 3 wouldn't, grew directly out of the DNA of Married with Children. You can draw a straight line from Al Bundy sitting on that couch with his hand in his waistband to every Fox programming decision for the next decade. That is a remarkable legacy for a show about a shoe salesman. Number 2. The final episode left everything unresolved on purpose. Except it wasn't on purpose. The ending of Married with Children is one of the stranger stories in television history, and it's strange for a reason that has nothing to do with creative decisions. The show's final episode, a 2-parter called How the Bundy Got Their Maid, aired on June 9th, 1997. It was not written as a series finale. It was written as a regular season finale, a setup for what the cast and crew fully expected to be a 12th season. There was no grand goodbye, no tearful moments, no resolution of any of the show's ongoing dynamics. Al didn't get a win. Peggy didn't get a redemption. Kelly didn't find her footing. Bud didn't find love. The Bundys just kept being the Bundys, and then the credits rolled, and then Fox quietly decided not to renew. The cast found out the show was canceled, not through any official announcement, but through the Hollywood grapevine. Ed O'Neill has spoken about this in interviews, noting that it was a strange and somewhat deflating way for something that had consumed 11 years of his life to end. No goodbye episode, no chance to bring things full circle, just a regular episode that happened, accidentally, to be the last one. And here's the thing, in a weird way, it's the most Married with Children ending imaginable. A show that spent 11 seasons refusing to give its characters satisfaction, redemption, or resolution, went out exactly the same way. No closure, no lesson, no horse and carriage. Just Al Bundy, still on that couch, still losing, still somehow defiant. If the writers had planned it, it would have been genius. The fact that it was an accident almost makes it more perfect. Number 1. The real legacy. How Married with Children changed sitcoms forever. Let's zoom out for a second and talk about what this show actually meant. Because I think Married with Children doesn't always get the credit it deserves, and that's a problem I'd like to spend a few hundred words fixing. Before Married with Children, the dominant model for American family sitcoms was essentially aspirational. Family Ties showed you how a family could navigate generational conflict with grace. The Cosby Show showed you that a family could be accomplished, educated, and joyful. Even the grittier shows of the era, like Roseanne, which premiered in 1988, just a year after the Bundys, had an underlying warmth that suggested things could get better. Married with Children was the first mainstream American sitcom to commit fully and without apology to the idea that things were not going to get better, that the Bundy family was exactly as miserable at the end of each episode as they were at the beginning, and that this was not a problem to be solved, but a premise to be explored. It was, in its own chaotic way, an existentialist sitcom. Camus with a laugh track, Beckett with a shoehorn. What followed in its wake was a fundamental shift in what American comedy was allowed to be. Roseanne deepened its own working-class darkness. The Simpsons, which as we mentioned was incubated on Fox, built an entire satirical universe on the model of the flawed, lovably terrible family. Seinfeld, which premiered in 1989, took the no hugs, no lessons philosophy and applied it to single urban adults. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which is still running, is essentially Married with Children, with even fewer redeeming qualities and more craft beer. The whole tradition of American sitcoms that don't resolve, don't redeem, and don't apologize runs directly through the Bundy household at 947 Jeopardy Lane, Chicago, Illinois. Al Bundy, a man who scored 4 touchdowns in a single game for Polk High and has been paying for it ever since, is the patron saint of television's refusal to pretend that everything turns out fine. That's not a small thing. That's a revolution in 22-minute increments, one bad shoe sale at a time. And that's a wrap on 15 weird facts about Married with Children. The show that built a network, survived a boycott, accidentally erased a child from existence, and changed American comedy in ways we're still feeling today. Which of these facts hit different for you? Was it the canceled finale nobody saw coming? The real-life tragedy behind Katie Saigel's pregnancy storyline? Or the fact that Terry Rakolta basically saved the show by trying to destroy it? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to Old TV Cinema. We're here every week, pulling apart the shows that built the television landscape you grew up with. Until next time, stay dysfunctional.